know it's been a while since I've posted any videos to the channel. I thought it might be nice to change the format up a little bit, so I'm going to try to keep this video concise as well. Thought maybe changing the setting might be nice. We'll see. I just actually discovered there are quite a few mosquitoes here, so this could be very interesting. But thank you so much for joining me. My name is Josh, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you're joining me in this video. So in the last video that I posted, we were in chapter 6 of the book study. And the question that was posed was, what does it look like when an individual expects God to be on their side and lives their life accordingly, makes their decisions accordingly? What does that look like? And we talked about how in the Word of God we can see many examples of this. And then one we talked about in that video was the story of Samson. Of course, you can go see that video. I'd love to hear from you and receive comments from you regarding that video. But for today's video, what I would like to is essentially ask the opposite question. We are now in chapter 7 of the book study. And the question is, what does it look like when a person seeks to be on God's side instead of expecting God to be on their side? What does that look like? And again, in the Word of God, there are many examples we can look to. So the question is, what are some of those? So I would love to hear from you in the comments of this video. Are there any examples you can think of, any characters in the Bible you can think of? You say, yeah, that person sought to be on God's side with all of their heart and their actions reflected it. God used them in a mighty way because of that. And so I'd love to hear from you. What are your examples? Who comes to mind? Now, I think it behooves me to at least give one example in this video. And so the example that comes to my mind that I love to cite is actually the example of Ananias. So Ananias is interesting to me because he's this character in the New Testament that otherwise isn't really mentioned a lot. He's mentioned very briefly. Acts chapter 9, verses 10 through 18 is where you hear pretty much what we know about him from the scriptures. But it's a beautiful story, and it is a story of a follower of Jesus being called to obedience. So God called him to do something that was basically illogical and potentially would put himself in harm's way, in serious danger. But God called him to be obedient, and he did. He was. And so I'll let you read the story. Again, I'll put the information in the description of this video. But it's a beautiful story. And again, in Ananias' life, we see that he sought to be on God's side, and his actions reflected it, because even when God asked him to do something that could potentially put himself in harm's way and require tremendous faith, he was able to do it because he was seeking God with all of his heart. If he had been expecting God to be on his side, then when God called him to do something that was hard, that required faith, that maybe put himself in harm's way, it would be very logical for him to then in that moment say, you know what, God, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. You would never ask me to sacrifice. You would never ask me to potentially put myself in harm's way. You would never ask me to do something that's hard. And yet he did. He was obedient. And we see from the scriptures how God used him. So, like I said, what are some examples you can think of in the scriptures? I'd love to hear from you. And I hope that you'll continue to join me. I do plan to post videos on a weekly basis going forward to get through all 16 sessions of the book study. So right now we're on chapter 7. Next week I'll be posting on chapter 8. And I hope that you'll follow me on this journey. May God be glorified in our lives as we seek to be on his side together. Thank you so much. May God bless you.